Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome back to Anchor Watch. I am your host, Bobby Jones, and there is a lot to discuss. This past week has been something else, obviously. Um, and basically, this episode tonight is going to be about rhetoric, Russia, rights, and arithmetic. Pretty big on alliteration. And the reason I say that, everybody and their mama has posted their thoughts on the killing and the murder of Charlie Kirk. And we are definitely going to get into that. But more importantly, we're going to get into the overarching problem because I think people are not looking at this in its full context. We're also going to talk about what's happening on the international stage, both abroad and as in Russia, Ukraine, and NATO. We're also going to talk about what's happening in our hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine, if you will, down in Venezuela, which I am following very closely due to my previous lifestyle, being in the United States Navy. Um, and then we're going to finish up with something that I think connects a lot of dots that I think affects every American, but we don't put enough emphasis on it. And it's kind of happening in the background. And that is education, primarily K through 12 education in America. I've been able to do some deep diving into our education systems. And what I found has been pretty disturbing. And I'll get into that and how the rise of AI factors into it and why you should be concerned moving forward about our education system. But I want to start off. Let's bring my esteemed producer, Sam, on camera here. Hi, how you doing, Sam?
Good. How you doing, Bobby?
I'm doing good. Considering. Uh,
I mean, look, every time somebody asks that, it's like it's almost like how you doing? It's like a
yeah,
soft like, are you
there's a
doing
caveat
okay?
to asking the question.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
but the first thing I want to start off with is the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's murder. So let's there is some startling, and I mean startling data that Reuters had just popped. And if we can bring up just the headline. So
Yeah.
in the fallout of all of this, the reaction has been pretty dang partisan. Not only has it been partisan, the rhetoric has been ratcheted up to levels most of us have not really seen before. Historians are saying this is like American Civil War rhetoric, only we have social media to pass it. But let me just bring up some stats. In this poll that Reuters and Ipsos just released, 63% of Americans believe today harsh political rhetoric does a lot to encourage violence. Okay. The second thing, 79% say people have become less tolerant of differing views over the last 20 years. And then here's the thing that just made me just sit and pause. 66%. Two out of three Americans are anxious because they fear violence in their community over politics. Sam, when you hear those numbers, what are your initial thoughts?
I mean, it sounds recognizable. You know what? To be fair, I was behind the scenes with strategy session tonight with Rick Wilson, and he was on with Tom Nichols, and they were talking a lot about the echo chamber
Yep.
essentially. And
Yep.
look, none of us are that tolerant anymore
Right.
of opposing viewpoints, but social media is crushing our ability to think independently and to Bobby, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I think something
Oh,
just happened to my camera. Hold on.
your camera. No biggie.
I will switch.
Um, but so social media, look, is is shooting us really toxic and persuasive messages every quarter second, right? And let's say you have somebody who is full on right wing or full on left wing, or they've gone down the QAnon rabbit hole, right? Susan G. online
Mhm.
algorithms are exacerbating the differences. That's exactly right. Now, here's the thing: a friend of mine went full Q in
Mm.
2016 and has continued. And a lot of us have been like, well, how do we? Maybe we just need to sit with him for a couple of hours, right? Maybe
Mm.
we need to sit with him.
Mm.
We can tell him, we love him, to talk, talk
Right.
him through some of this stuff. But here's what we're up against. He's on Facebook 10, 8
There it
even
is.
hours, 12 hours a day. And it is delivering him, you know, delivering him the exact thing that's going to make
Mhm.
him enraged and push him further away from us. And
Right.
we want to do it in 3 hours. Facebook has 12 hours a day,
Right.
365 days a year. This
Right.
is this is a crisis. This is a
So
dramatic crisis.
I think you're hitting on a very, very valid point here, right? The rhetoric have been ramping up, to be completely honest, since 2008.
For
That
sure.
is my line of demarcation when Barack Obama was elected the first black president of the United States.
You mean Barack Hussein Obama, Bobby?
Yes, Barack Hussein Obama, right? And the visceral reaction to a black family being in the White House was unlike anything we had seen politically in our lifetimes, right? So you had that initial reaction. Then the other line of demarcation is 2015 when Trump came down the escalators, right? But here's the major piece that I think gets overlooked. All of those reactions were amplified to the nth degree when all of us were forced to be shut in COVID.
Yeah.
The amount of misinformation, the amount of amplification, and going back to what you said, Sam, the amount of people who were sucked in online multiple double digit hours a day, circulating everything. We saw at that moment, forget politics, we saw the creation of alternate realities. We saw people who had medical degrees. One of my closest friends, oldest friends, Harvard graduate, Harvard med school graduate, works with the CDC, was told he didn't know a damn thing about COVID, and that the horse medicine, amivicerin or whatever it was called,
Ivermectin. Yeah. Oh my God.
yes, was the primary way to stop COVID. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, the combined years of medical study that my friend went through to be debunked by literally, or to be challenged by someone who literally lives in South rural Georgia and barely has a high school education, was mind blowing. I had never seen that. That is when I remember thinking to myself, we're in uncharted territory here, because throughout all of American history, this whole get credentialed, become educated, this, that, and the other went out the window. We went
Yeah.
with feel, we went with gut. Most
Yep.
importantly, we went with sides. I'm on
Yes.
this side, you're on that side. And so these three major issues in my mind: Barack Obama's election, Trump's campaign. Notice I said campaign, not election. His campaign was the thing that started to change reality as we perceive it. And then COVID amplifying all of that led to the violence that you saw. It is not a coincidence that the United States Capitol building was assaulted for the first time by domestic criminals in its history when Donald John Trump was in office. It is not a coincidence that we have seen the escalation of political violence going back to 2017 with Donald John Trump in office. Because when your leadership is talking violent, you ought to drag them out in the street and this, that, and the other, or I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, we had never, and I'm not exaggerating, we have never heard a president of the United States say those things. If you don't think there's not a trickle down effect, ask Governor Whitmer in Michigan,
Right.
or ask, because this is what's killing me too. We're quickly forgetting what the left has endured as political violence. Ask the governor of Pennsylvania how the renovations on your house coming, sir?
Somebody tried to
Or
burn it down.
Minnesota, or Minnesota, where they're still missing the heart and soul of their Democratic Party. And make no mistake, that political violent episode, not only was she killed, not only was the husband killed, they killed the damn dog.
Yeah.
And not a
Yeah.
word, and let me be clear with this, not a word from the burning of the freaking governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, from the kidnap plot that was foiled on Governor Whitmer, to the death of a Minnesota state legislator, not one word from Donald Trump. And now we want to fake and sit there and say you're not feeling sorry enough for Charlie Kirk. Make it make sense to me.
I want to go back to that 2008 because 2006, 2007 was when Facebook was introduced.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it is one of those just catastrophic convergences,
Yep.
right? When Obama gets elected at the same time that the Death Star was being built.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
And Obama used it for his campaign.
Sure. Well,
And
all
it helped get him
those,
elected. Yeah.
we were all like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Right. Well, hey, we only saw the positives and not what could happen if it was misused. And there's no regulation.
Yeah.
Which
No regulation,
really
no one
destroys it.
overlooking it. I think to add on to this as well, there's people look for meaning in their lives, right?
That's a very good
And
point.
I know my friend who went down the Q hole found this sort of community, and he found this
Exactly.
purpose, and he found this world in which he could actually show up and be a hero. He could know more than the rest of us normies because he'd done the research, as he said, right?
Right.
And there's something next level about that. There's something that feels so much better than your bullshit everyday life, going to
Right.
working at a cubicle
Right.
or
Right.
whatever you do. You are here to save the world, and that's intoxicating.
It
But
is.
but now I think it's being weaponized. That
I
sense is
completely
being
agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. That whole mentality of feeling lost and finding a tribe has now been weaponized to turn against the rest of society. And to be honest, because I get this question all the time, what can we do about it? When you have people in your sphere of influence that you see and they seem to be loners, or they seem to be outside of what, quote, the norm, whatever the hell that means, is reach out and talk to them. Reach out and acknowledge their humanity. Seriously, I guarantee you, people, that there are people at your job that you see every day, and you're like, and you see them existing but not living. There's a difference, because living means you're interacting with other people.
Yes.
You feel like your existence has value. It's those people who get sucked up into these type of conspiracy things. It's the same thing when veterans leave the service and it's the only thing
Right.
they've known, right? And they have a hard time finding a job. They feel like they're the odd person out. Trust me, I went through it. It's like I went into civilian society after 26 years, over half my life of doing this in this environment, and you realize that you are not like everybody else around you, right? And so you look for some type of purpose, something that remotely comes close to what you did, and you can't find it. But then there are these people over here in the corner that are radical, like, hey, we see you because no one else does.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, no one else
Yep.
cares, so why not?
I had a conversation with Mike Cortez. He's running against Andy Ogle in Tennessee 5. And he's actually coming. We had an amazing conversation, but it was a lot about that and about how Trump is able. He doesn't do shit for his followers, but he does listen, or at least he hears
Gives
them,
the
right?
impression. Yes.
Yeah. And that is so essential. Actually, Mike Cortez is coming back on because he wants to talk more about tech and about addiction. And so we're not even going to talk about his candidacy. That's coming up next Monday. But really, really pressing issues that are getting overlooked because Trump is blowing up boats. And
we're gonna get to that.
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
and Putin is pushing into Poland and all of this stuff. I wanted to just run this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
It is well, let's see it and then you can explain it.
Miller is suggesting here. He said, quote, the Democratic Party is not a political party, it's a domestic extremist organization.
Well, they have a very different view than I do. I'm a conservative Republican. I have Democratic friends that think very differently, vote very differently, but they're still my friend on it. So just having that ideology, just believing differently than some other American is not illegal. That's America.
Just to follow up on what Stephen Miller.
I'm glad you brought up that clip of Senator Langford, Sam. Number one, Senator Langford and I probably agree on probably maybe 15 to 20% of political topics. But the one thing I've always respected, and let me make sure I say respected about that man, is he carries himself understanding the weight of the office that he's in. And this is the last piece of why the rhetoric is dangerous. What we have seen is this dangerous rhetoric migrate from the streets, from the internet, into politics. To hear Nancy Mace yelling like a banshee outside of the Capitol building, when she was asked legitimate questions on political violence, I was like, you got to be kidding me. To see people like Ted Cruz, to see the over the top reaction because it was one of theirs, and to be honest, there are many on the right that are trying to tamp down the rhetoric because they see what's happened. But
yeah,
make no mistake, just like even on the left, there's this sliver of extremists who's like, I need to hog the spotlight, and to be more extreme is how I get that, and then all of a sudden when something goes wrong, they're quiet. I didn't see Nancy Mace say anything when the Minnesota state lawmakers were killed. Not a word.
No,
not a word. Not a word.
No.
I didn't see her say anything when, like I said, the governor's mansion was burned in Pennsylvania. Not a word. They're using this not even necessarily to push political agendas, but to create and keep the limelight, to push themselves, individual brands. A lot of it has to do with, in my humble opinion, too, who's the successor to Trump on the right?
Well, why don't we talk about that?
Yeah,
because the vice president is coming out with all kinds of messaging.
There it is.
And he is go ahead because I want to hear your.
That's exactly it. Because did he not host Charlie Kirk's podcast this week?
Exactly.
And do you think that's because, as the vice president of the United States of America, you have way more important things that you should be concerned about, especially if you're vice president with a president that it is obvious to everybody is physically deteriorating. You are one heartbeat away from the presidency. You need to be ready to roll. Just my personal opinion. But what is he doing? Right? This is where I have issues. If this was Kamala Harris hosting a podcast and Joe Biden was president in his dilapidated state, I would say the same exact thing. Sure. I really would. So my thing is, we're watching politics embrace the rhetoric. The rhetoric is now becoming action, and it's being led by our most visible individuals, whether they're politicians, whether they are podcasters, whether they are media personalities. No one wants to slow down the damn truck because they are in the limelight as long as the truck is moving, and that is dangerous. That is dangerous.
It's dangerous, and I would say, Vance said something like, there's crazies on both sides, but the vast majority of lunatics, which is like lunatics, you're going to use that word, are owned by the left. And that's whatever.
Yes.
The bigger thing is, you mentioned he's got to be ready to go, right?
I agree.
As vice president or as president. Mm-hmm. And division makes things harder for everyone, right? And so the goal of this is, why continue to do this? Like you're making things more difficult for everyone politically across the board. you're ensuring weird primaries in red districts and weird primaries in blue districts, and you're just sowing chaos into this whole thing. And what would, just as a thought experiment, if Putin were running the show, what would he be doing differently right now? Right?
I mean, and that we might as well go into this too. This leads into into our next block here, and I want to make sure I'm very clear. What we're looking at in the United States is like a sanitized version of Game of Thrones. Okay, there is no nation right now. We are divided into these various factions, and those factions are jockeying to dominate policy. This is not even right and left, because guess what? You have these extremist groups in both of those sections now too, when most of America is a bell curve. What I mean by bell curve is most of Americans are here. They're in the center of this bell curve, but the loudest voices in the room are these extreme ends. Why does this matter? Because when Russia launches multiple drones into Poland, who is a NATO ally, okay, and they can sit there and have the authority to say, hey, we want to activate Article 5 of the NATO Charter, meaning we have been attacked by Russia, and all members of NATO will come to our defense, basically sparking a war. That is what we are looking at happening. And what did President Trump do? What did his administration respond when hearing of these strikes? Do we have the video? I mean, let's
I want
start
to show
there.
this first, and then we'll show the video, because like, what's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Dude, you tell me. Like, you're the president.
As someone who has a significant amount of experience dealing with that country in that scenario, if anybody looked at my mind, I would literally sit there and say, that's an Onion article. There's no way that is reality.
Yeah.
There's no way that's reality. There's no way that the president of the United States, and to be honest, the de facto head of the NATO alliance, is saying that. So he was asked this question by the press pool. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it was a Polish reporter. Do we have that clip?
Yeah, let's run it.
What's your reaction to Russian drone incursion into Poland?
Could have been a mistake. But regardless, I'm not happy about anything having to do with that whole situation. But hopefully it's going to come to an end.
Okay, so a couple of things in that clip. Number one, it looked like he was trying to process, and I'm glad I hope he was trying to think before he spoke. But here's the thing that blew my mind about that. The amount of drones that flew into Poland were in the double digits.
Right.
Now, as somebody who was a tactical action officer on a U.S. Navy vessel who had been in that region, who basically, if it flies, it dies. We shoot it down if we can, this type of thing. That does not happen. That is not an accident. There's no way. Many, and you don't have to take my word for it. Go look at reputable security experts. They're unified to include people like me who've been there and done that. We're saying it was a test. He did it on purpose to see what NATO's response would be. And he knows as long as President Trump is in the White House, that the response will be muted by American interference. So instead of Article 5, which, thankfully Poland decided not to, they did Article 4, where they're like, hey, we want all the NATO allies to get together and let's discuss what the heck just happened and what are our next steps. The fact that the president of the United States made it seem like, a whoopsie-doo, where you literally have drones flying into Polish buildings. Understand the trauma history of Poland and why they're heaping mad. It's not even what happened to them in World War II. It's the fact that, hey, the Warsaw Pact, all of that happened after World War II. They were subjugated by the Soviet Union. Okay, so they are on edge. The fact that we're having a conversation where there has not been an address from the president, there has been no real substantive discussion from the Secretary of Defense or War, whatever he's calling himself this week, shows a lack of coherent strategic initiative by the United States. Period. Point blank, in the discussion. There's no one that can tell me different because, again, some of us know better. Some of us know better. So while that's happening and all of Europe is sitting there asking themselves, what is next in our hemisphere? Because for some reason, this administration loves bringing up old logic and old rules. And I mean, like the Sedition Act in the 1700s and 1800s.
Right.
The Monroe Doctrine is now back in effect as far as United States foreign policy. So we have what's called an amphibious ready group and a surface action group of Navy ships off the coast of Venezuela.
Right.
We made international headlines when the United States Navy, in a role typically filled by the Coast Guard, but that's neither here nor there, completely wiped out what they said were drug runners, 11 killed instantly. Now we follow it up with another as President Trump says, narco terrorist in international waters, killing 3. Here's the thing, people. No evidence has been presented as to who these people were. No case has been made by the administration to show the data, to show the weapons, to show the cash, to show the cocaine that would still probably be there if they had retreated. No evidence. It is like if you are the international community, you're looking around and you're saying to yourself, my God, the Americans are just executing boats, regardless if they are trafficking the drugs or not. This is why we have a Coast Guard that is closer to inland than our Navy. But when asked about this, President Trump had a very interesting reaction to this. Do we have the clip?
Yeah, let me roll it.
I've noticed that there are no ships in the ocean anymore. We're seeing that there's like no ships, when the first one we went, there were hundreds of boats. Now there are no boats. I wonder why. Meaning no drugs are coming across, probably stopping some fishermen too. I mean, to be honest, if I were a fisherman, I wouldn't want to go fishing. Just a nice, let's take a little trip, because I'd say, man, maybe they think I have drugs downstairs. I don't want that. I think the fishing business probably been hurt, but there are literally no boats. This was a boat, and we were surprised to see it. Now, what?
Okay, someone who spent over half his life in the Navy. Understand something. Being a fisherman is hard. It is hard work to try to sustain a lifestyle going out to sea. Ask our New England brothers and sisters, ask our Gulf brothers and sisters, ask our coastal brothers and sisters in our around the country how hard it is to sustain yourself by being a fisherman, number one. Number two, Sam, if you were an average fisherman, let's say you had, I don't know, a 35-foot boat that you took out to go fishing every day, and you get reports, you hear of 2 boats in 2 weeks getting completely just smoked, wrecked. How would you still want to go out to sea and fish? Just curious.
I mean, no, absolutely not. Look, I've worked on a lot of TV shows that have been set on the high seas, right? And they've been doc series. They one was about crimes on the high seas, and we followed a lot of fishing crews. We followed a lot of detectives, a lot of law enforcement in international waters and elsewhere. And conditions on boats and on fisheries are grim. I mean, it's really a difficult life. So there are a couple of things that I want to. And also, having done that research and having talked to those people involved in those shows and done all that, I also know that the United States has a monopoly, for the most part, on power on the high seas, right? That the most or all seaborne vessels operate at the, by the grace of the United States. We can blow up anyone anywhere. We can shipping lanes, we protect them. Let me ask you this, because I think this is kind of like, this is going under the radar here, so to speak. You're on a ship, Bobby. You're still serving. what does it take? What is the protocol for
Mhm.
being able to fire on a ship, on a vessel, even a small boat, or even
Right.
a big boat
Right.
that is uh, uh, like what do you have? What
Yeah.
process do you
So
have to go through to be able to fire on someone?
let me speak in generalities. Number one, any U.S. Navy warship can fire its weapons in acts of self-defense. No permission needed.
Mhm.
No questions need to be asked. The captain of that ship, he or she has the inherent right to do that. Full stop.
And so, what does that look like self-defense, though?
So self-defense, we have to and this is the thing, you have to determine that a threat exists and that that threat is directed at you and engagement is imminent, right?
Got it.
As opposed to what is happening here, the United States Navy is basically being used as the weapon and being told to target, and this ship here is, this boat here is the threat. Okay, that's based on intel, but most importantly, the orders come in this situation because of the high visibility. It's coming from the Secretary of Defense's office. There's no OSD, is what it's called, or OSW, whatever they're going to call it now. There's no way that they are proactively engaging foreign national assets proactively without permission from the highest levels of the chain of command. Period.
Right.
Period. Because and even though it's international, international waters, international law is still a thing,
Of
right?
course.
And we always would joke the wild wild west as soon as we leave port and go outside of 12 nautical miles of the United States, because that's when international waters begin. Understand though, there is an international criminal court still. They were the ones that determined who can go where, as far as how we navigate into ports around the world, all of these different things that the world post World War II hammered out.
Right.
The fact is, we have presented no evidence of what those boats were carrying, to be honest, right? We're just taking the word of the president and the Secretary of Defense, and everybody's like, okay, cool. What happens, and this is the thing that I tell people, anytime there's a military engagement, you expose yourself to miscalculation.
Sure.
What happens when you fire upon the wrong boat? If you see dhows, if you see small fish, there's so many most of the time that it's hard to determine which one is which, and it's like finding the ultimate needle in a haystack when you try to do this. You got to be sure. Typically, especially if you're near territorial waters or you're near economic exclusion zones, which go out to 200 nautical miles, you're coordinating with other countries to make sure you get it right. But what are we doing with Venezuela? We are antagonizing them to the point where they have called up their National Guard and their reserves. We went out of our way this week to say Colombia next door is over there not doing enough to fight the drug trade. He also mentioned Bolivia, Afghanistan. And you're just like, where's all this coming from? I'm not saying that drugs are not being trafficked in the United States. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is using the United States Navy in that role is a miscalculation of force that on purpose escalates everything, which is what they want. They want that big, bad, imposing presence in our own hemisphere. Again, we're not doing a damn thing for Russia or China, but here in our backyard, Monroe Doctrine style 1820s, we're tough. It makes no sense. So let me make sure I got this straight. We talked about the Alien Sedition Act of the 1700s. We're doing the Monroe Doctrine of the 1800s, and we have the tariff policy of the early 1900s from McKinley, all wrapped up in one person. Everything is outdated, and it does not recognize the complexities of the modern world. That's why I'm just like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
What are we doing? And I think that, look, what we're doing really, let's say they were drug dealers. Let's say.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
We don't know that. We'll never know it.
Mhm.
Because number one, they're not releasing any intel or any information
Right.
about these attacks. So these are perhaps suspected drug dealers, is the best we could say.
Right.
And you don't put suspects to death in
Right.
the United States.
Right.
You have due
Absolutely.
process. That's right. But the other thing is,
Right.
the thing that gets me, and I want you to talk me through this a little bit. If this was an illegal action, right, which like the ships weren't under any,
Mhm.
they weren't defending themselves by
Right.
any means. We're not at
Mhm.
war with those
Right.
countries. Congress didn't
Mhm.
authorize any of this. Is
Right.
this Trump saying internationally, I'll do whatever I want. Who's going to stop me?
Well, in a nutshell, pretty much it's a litmus test. But here's what I would tell you. Remember how I have harped on one of the first things that this Trump administration did was fire all the top JAGs, the judge advocate generals, the
Yes.
top lawyers in the
Yeah.
military. It's for stuff like this. This does not pass the smell test. Now, maybe, and I'm actually hoping and praying that there has been evidence presented in a classified network, in a classified briefing to Congress or whoever, because Congress, Senate Armed Service Committee, the House Armed Service Committee should have been briefed on this.
Yep.
Make no mistake, they should an offensive action against against a state that you have not declared war. They need to be briefed. I'm praying that happened. I don't know. I don't have that classification anymore. But I will say this: the fact that it happened, and even to try to win the court of public opinion, there was no effort made to do so, makes my antenna stand up. And then
Yeah.
on top of that, the fact that we don't know what the strategic objectives are with this. Let me be very, very clear, America. Anytime the United States military proactively fires ordnance against another nation state, you should demand to know why. Not in defense, but in offense. You should always demand to know why, and your congressional leaders should be saying the same thing.
I think let's go take a couple of steps back again, because um, we were firing on a nation state, but we were actually very purposely killing civilians. Like they weren't
Yes.
enlisted. They weren't the military. And it doesn't matter what the fuck they did. It doesn't matter what
Well,
kind of criminals they were. They were civilians. So we're purposely now and actively and joyously targeting civilians and killing them. It's disgusting.
this is why the overwhelming response to relabel the casualties is taking place.
Right.
Narco terrorist, that is a new term, and they're hoping it sticks because that's what they're going to label these people, if they're drug runners or not. For all we know, they could have been immigrants trying to get to America or some other location
Right.
to escape the oppressive regime of Maduro down there.
Sure.
We don't know. We
Mm-mm.
just have the video that they show that makes it look like, hey, America's got badass military hardware. Yes, we know. In other news, water's wet. The question you need to be asking yourself is, who were they? What evidence, what intel did you have saying they were running drugs, right? And then the 3 that you killed today. First of all, that's a lot of money to take out 3 people that could have just been arrested by a Coast Guard of a variety of people, a variety of countries.
How
But
much
it's
do you
not
think it
about.
was?
I do not want to. I do not want to
I
speculate
mean,
because of the ordinance and the classifications and those type of things. I don't even
right.
want to step foot there. But I will say this. I will say this: the amount of money that it would have took to, I don't know, have 34-foot Coast Guard boat go out there with 5, 6 people on board to take out, to not take out, but to actually arrest the 3 people was a hell of a lot cheaper because you're talking about gas, maybe some food, some time. That's it. But no, the visual of
Yeah.
overwhelming force is so important to this administration. Thus, the National Guard now on their way to Memphis, apparently. Okay.
Right.
You're seeing these things, and it's not just that it's happening, they willfully and happily are putting out the visuals to go with it. They want you to see it. Just like the B-2 bombers in Iran, they want you to see it. They want you to be in awe of the power. It's about power, 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 power. And my thing is, where's the diplomacy? Israel bombs Gaza, yeah, but Israel then bombs Qatar. What'd you do about that? Oh, now Netanyahu's coming down to visit you because he happens to be going to the UN. He's going to the UN because he understands the world has basically turned against him. Not not the Jewish people, not even the country of Israel, but his government specifically. So he's trying to do damage control. Now he's going to go to the White House and pledge loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump because he understands by hitting the Qataris of all people, he could hit the Saudis, he could have he could have hit anybody else, but the people giving him a $400 million jet were hit.
Yeah.
Right. And they are also the ones that have done the lead negotiations between Israel and Hamas. So you're cutting off your nose to spite your face in this situation. And our diplomatic chops have no teeth. Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, all of this is happening. So when we look at Venezuela, they're hammering Venezuela because they think it's an international situation that they can win and look tough doing so, as opposed to the real complex issues of Russia, of Gaza, of China, of Ukraine and Poland. We're not dealing with that, not with any real substance. I mean, Putin stood the man up. So just people. The last thing I'll say about this whole international cabal that we're dealing with is we live in a society where news travels instantaneously, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, governments, not just the United States, governments in general, still try to control the narrative. If somebody who is not American looked at our country right now and asked the question, what do y'all think internationally? Where do y'all stand on this? Again, we still don't have the national security strategy out, but just in the last 7-8 months, what is America's international place and what are they trying to accomplish? If you are an unbiased person that's not American, the number one word that you would probably sit there and say is chaos, because there's no order anywhere right now. The only order, the only thing that I know that is happening is that the president of the United States has been enriched by being in office internationally via Qatar, via other organizations. But America's reputation diplomatically, soft power, gone. That I know too. It's gone. So now we're relying on, as they used to say back in the day, gunboat diplomacy, literally in Venezuela, literally going to have to deploy a Navy that has been, to be completely honest, fatigued for years because of the global war on terrorism. Now you're going to rely on these people to sit there and be your primary negotiator through the barrel of a 5-inch or a missile, a silo or whatever. It's I don't understand the why. I do understand the how, and I'm concerned with the what's next because of all of these things.
I think there's a short-termism in Trump's approach to everything that is catastrophic for the long term.
Yes.
And I think that, look, if my, if I had a neighbor who was a big, strong guy, always out mowing his lawn and doing the big, strong guy stuff, I guess mowing your lawn is a big, strong guy stuff in my mind. But anyway, and he goes out and a little kid passes in front of his house and he goes over and he just knocks the crap out of him. I wouldn't think that guy was tough. I think he was quite weak. I would think he was a coward. And this is where we are, right? We're using, and like, look, Putin has exhausted his military and he did it so quickly. And now he's just throwing cannon fodder, right? This war in Ukraine has been catastrophic for him in a way that I don't think we'll fully unravel or understand for decades.
No, I agree.
And here Trump wants to commit our resources to a meaningless fight with a tiny country of civilians, and for no apparent reason other than I don't know exactly why. I think you're right, Bobby. I think it's for show. I think it's to watch the things explode. It's his own little firework display in his honor, and it's killing people. And I think it's going to have really ruinous effects on our country.
Well, I'll put it to you like this: until today and the Senate hearing with the current FBI Director Kash Patel, which was an absolute circus. No one was talking about the Epstein files.
No.
All of a sudden, it's back because of Kash Patel's poor handling of Charlie Kirk's murder. And this is what blows my mind about this is everybody thinks that America is going to forget about that. But at the meantime, the amount of danger that we are subjecting not just American servicemen and women to, but Americans abroad by doing these things is significant. It's really significant. And let me, I've said this before, but I'm going to be very clear. If this was a Democrat in office doing the same thing, I'd be just as pissed. Actually, I'd be more ticked because they should know better. Because the bedrock of the Democratic Party, supposedly internationally, is diplomacy.
Yeah.
You know, a complete professional diplomatic corps. Look at what's happened with the current administration. We have gutted those people. Regardless of their affiliation, they are career neutral people who try to execute on the behalf of the United States. We got rid of think about it. We got rid of the lawyers in the military, and we got rid of the diplomatic expertise in the State Department. When you take away the legal restraints of the military and then have the inability to effectively negotiate on the international stage, and you call yourself a superpower, this is a dangerous combination. Forget what's happening domestically, because that's its own ball of wax. But what we have done economically, isolating ourselves with terrorists, militarily going after countries historically we have not gone after. I mean, Colombia actually has been an ally historically for us for the last 70 years. We can go down the list of alliances that have been shattered, economic isolation that has happened, and all we have to hear from the current administration is, you know, America first, America first. How is this putting America first? You're talking about the drug problems and the drugs that are coming in. Okay, I get it. We have systems for that. But instead, you put all of your money into fighting illegal immigration, where to the point you're scooping up American citizens instead of working with Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, and putting together the most awesome task force ever seen to counter drugs. You could have made that your legacy. But no, it doesn't serve the purpose. You want to talk about terrorism and rhetoric? We have white supremacists rolling all over the country. And you have disbanded the task force to go after them. You see what I'm saying? And again, to show you just how crazy this is, America, when Charlie Kirk was shot and eventually died, yes, we expected emotional fallout. But for me, as a Black man, the next day, the historically Black colleges around America, in Atlanta, in Louisiana, I mean, HBCUs got bomb threats because people were mad that Charlie Kirk was killed. This was a white man that was shot by another white man at a white university, one of the whitest out there, in one of the whitest states in America. You look at the video footage, there were no people of color to be seen, let alone Black. And yet somehow it's Black people's fault, and we need to literally threaten where they go to school. The same thing that conservatives are told Black people to do their entire lives: pull yourself up by your bootstraps, get educated. They're getting educated, and then you call in bomb threats. How am I, someone who spent over half his life in the military, someone who's gone to multiple colleges, how am I supposed to interpret that? I'm just curious. What would you think if you're a Black kid at Morehouse College, and all of a sudden you can't go to class because of something that happened to Charlie Kirk in Utah, where none of your people were there? That's what we're dealing with.
Look, Bobby, I think the truth is I could never imagine it. I can't imagine that.
Right.
No, I don't have that lived experience. But I think that we would all do better to try to imagine what that's like. I mean, it is mind-boggling, and it is everything comes back to that.
And Sam, that leads me to my final point tonight, talking about education. So I've been digging into public education, K through 12, around the country here recently. And what I'm finding out about our education system is it is very simple: the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots are extremely large compared to those that have.
Yeah.
What I mean by that are resources to actually educate people. One of the reasons this came up into my mind was because I watched a couple of local school boards here recently try to vote against free school lunch and free school breakfast for those in need. Now, I don't care what your damn religion is. I don't care what your political affiliation is. You need to explain to me personally why you would vote against kids being able to have nourishment. You cannot learn if you're hungry. But I just want to understand, especially because a lot of these places where this has happened have been Republican, the party of Christ, if you will. Show me the Bible passage. And I went to a Christian goddamn college preparatory school. So please show me the Bible passage that justifies that treatment of children, right? So I started going down this rabbit hole. I'm looking at different school models. The amount of money that is disproportionately spent depending on your zip code, it's beyond despicable. And it's gotten worse in the last 7 months because of policies that are being enacted. When that big, beautiful bill kicks in, mind you, people, we're dealing with the inflation, we're dealing with the high cost of groceries, all these things, and the bill hasn't even started. We're seeing the shutdowns of rural hospitals right now, and the bill doesn't kick in until next year. Just think about what your local school board is going to have to do without the federal funding that it has had in the past. States can't make up for that gap.
Mm-mm.
And kids are going to suffer. I'm talking 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids. That goes beyond just achievement and milestones and metrics that everybody loves. I'm talking about their basic existence to go to school. And that's not even talking about how we can't keep them safe. We have a chronic problem where there are people purposely trying to defund quality education publicly. And if you win what I call, the birth canal lottery, if you are born to the right family and the right zip code, you have a much better chance of succeeding. But at the same time, we talk about the American dream, right?
Yep.
You can't have both. And I guarantee you, people, if you look around in your school districts, and I'm not talking about the wealthy ones. If you're in a wealthy school district, look at the one opposite of you on the other side of town. You tell me if you would want your kids there. And so then to alleviate that, they come up with the private school vouchers and this, that, and the other, which won't pay for the tuition at all. It may pay for some uniforms and some books. But most importantly, understand the rise of the private school in the modern era happened because of segregation academies in the South.
1,000%. Totally.
So what we're doing, what we're seeing is a slow creep back to those who don't have. And those people who don't have typically have darker pigmentation in their skin. And as that population continues to grow in America, you have those that have the affluence to try to separate themselves, do that. And they're not caring about everybody else's education, because here's the thing. It is easier to manipulate people when they are not able to critically think. And that is what school is supposed to help do. It's part of a larger thing. Heritage Foundation has talked about it in the past. You can look up those YouTube videos and stuff like that. But understand this, America, with everything we've talked about this last hour, right? Domestically, the rhetoric, internationally, the ramping up of tensions. Sam, if you are in 11th grade right now, and you're looking at the world and you're looking at your classes that you're taking, hoping to go to college, do you feel like you are equipped to be able to deal with this in the next, say, 5, 6, 7 years after you graduate from high school and college?
I mean, I'm not equipped to deal with it now, Bobby.
Right. Right.
And look, I've got kids going through school right now, and we the state of the school is not, it's not great. And we have school boards that are doing their best, and we have teachers that are doing their best. But Perry says in the chat, MAGA spending money on a $200 million ballroom.
Bingo.
Well, kids' lunches and cancer research.
Bingo.
And this is the other thing. And like, I don't like this kind of thinking exactly. I think all people have value, right?
Yes.
Like in our system, and it's our racist kind of capitalist system. And like, I know I'm not supposed to,
Yeah.
go that far left, but like we define value by what you make or what you're worth monetarily, right? Or
Right.
what color your skin is, or
Right.
those kinds of things. If we dialed that back and said every person born has value because they're a person, then things start to change. I would also say that, look, if you don't feed the kids in school, your life gets worse because you've got a bunch of hungry, poor kids in your neighborhood who are desperate, right? Like this is a social and societal problem, and it's part of our our social compact. We
It
need to take
is.
care of each other because it
It
helps us.
is. Think about it like this, and this is the final thing I'll say about education specifically, and the final thing I'll say, basically, to sign off for the night. Show me your time, show me your budget, and I will show you your priorities. Right after World War II, those that came back from the war realized that, hey, we're on the verge of this new thing, this middle class that we did not get to see as kids because we lived through the Great Depression. And they made the bedrock of that middle class education, right? Public school system reform, suburbs, this, that, and the other, the GI Bill overwhelmingly. Now, granted, don't get it twisted. There were a lot of racist policies that denied certain people being able to utilize that. But the basic premise was education is the bedrock for which we will build the new American Colossus.
Yes.
That was it. And in just 2 whole generations, we have gone from that to questioning during COVID medical experts who were trying to learn about a new virus on the fly that went to the best medical schools in the world and being told by some rural farmer in Alabama, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. We got this horse medicine over here that's going to work better. Think about that. Just think about that. The CDC, all these things that were invented post-World War II to help with education and research, we have seen in one lifetime, my mother's lifetime, completely swap.
Yeah.
This is where we are at. And I'm sounding the alarm again. I don't give a damn if you're a Republican. I don't give a damn if you're a Democrat. There are certain things that are American, full stop. And the pursuit of excellence through education was a bedrock for this country. Now, if you are highly educated, you have to prove loyalty. You have to act dumb. It's to watch Kash Patel, a podcaster, be the head of the FBI and make mistake after mistake after mistake. Doesn't send a message about the administration. Forget that. It sends a message that competency is no longer an American trait.
No, it's not a quality we value. And I want to say, Maxine Hunter in the audience. Hey, Maxine, always good to see you in there. She says, show what you spend your money on, and that shows where your priorities are.
Yeah.
We're spending billions on ICE. We're spending money.
$158 billion on ICE, like, which is more than the United States Marine Corps has for its entire budget for the next fiscal year. The Marines, who are the first ones to fight, that kick in the doors of America's enemies, get less money than ICE.
Crazy.
I mind blown. But people, this is where we are. And sugarcoating is not going to do us any good. We have got to figure out ways to come together.
Yep.
I need to be better at it. Everybody needs to be better at it. But the first step is acknowledging we are severely divided. I don't want to hear any more of this rhetoric. Oh, America's no. It is obvious that America has been shattered, and it takes leadership, humility, humane leadership to bring this back together. Because if not, these, I saw some people on the right, the forces of evil and darkness. Yeah, sure. They'll win. And eventually they'll figure out a reason for you, who you think you're on the right side, to not be in the in crowd anymore.
True.
Because we've seen this play out time and time again in human history.
Well, this is look, I just want to say this one last thing, and that's
Yeah,
why,
sure.
like, anyone who's, talking about equity or fairness gets labeled as somehow woke. But fairness means fairness for everyone, right? Right?
Yep.
It means
Yep.
not being unfair for anyone. And to say that, like, no, I don't want fairness is saying
Yeah.
I still want the right to suppress and hold myself in higher esteem than another person. It's illogical.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's right up at an hour. We didn't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you for joining us, Sam. Thanks as always for jumping in and just basically, I don't know, being my virtual shrink, because some of this I feel like I'm going crazy.
Bobby, it's
I don't know.
it's an honor to be invited. I really appreciate it. It's always a blast to be here. Highlight of my day.
No, thank you guys, and thank you guys for watching. Please tell a friend about us, and send us questions, because there's a lot of stuff that most people don't know. I don't know, but we're gonna find people that do know, because I think America is too important, obviously.
are.
But we got to do better than this. This ain't it.
This ain't it. This ain't
Nope.
it. Yeah, thank you everyone in the audience. Jessica Fillion says you guys are great. Thank you for the therapy session. We're feeling it too. We're feeling the love, Jessica. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Appreciate all of you, everyone in the audience. And yeah, send us questions. And Bobby, remember how I couldn't get the Cash Patel video? Well,
Yeah.
I got one. So let's
Can we show that? Can we show that on the way out?
Yeah.
This is the current state of America. The FBI director and the ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee.
I don't know exactly which clip I got, but why don't we say goodbye? We'll play this off, and this is how we'll end the show tonight.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay.